What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel, and I've got some very exciting news here. I am one of the first people in the entire country with the new 2022 Chevy Bolt EUV. Now, I may not be the very first, but I guarantee you I'm somewhere in the top 10 to 15 people to actually have purchased one of the new larger Bolt EUVs. Now, if you guys are unfamiliar with the Bolt, it is Chevy's all-electric, I guess, SUV. It's a little bit smaller than your traditional SUV. It's a very, very subcompact SUV, if you want to call it that. But this is not the normal EV. This is actually the EUV, which is a little bit of a bigger body style. So in this video, specifically on this channel, we're gonna talk about kind of just my first impressions in having it. I've only had it for a couple days, but I'll be doing follow-up videos kind of talking about my journey with owning an electric vehicle for the first time. So definitely hit subscribe so you don't miss those future videos. But in this one, we're just gonna kind of give a little bit of an overview of the equipment that I've got on this thing and just kind of taking a first look at this vehicle when it's shiny and new before I, start existing in it. So what I got here is a 2022 Chevy Bolt EUV 1LT. So there's a couple different trim level options you can get. On the EUV specifically, you can get an LT and a Premier. And there's also a Launch Edition one. Now the Launch Edition one is going to give you basically every feature you could possibly want. The Premier is going to be missing a couple things, but have most of all the features. And then the LT is more of like the base model. Now the base model here without any other packages on it starts at about $34,000. If you go up to the Premier, it's like 38. The Launch Edition is probably a little bit more than that. You're definitely going to be missing some things on this LT that you would get on the higher trim levels. It doesn't have heated seats, just cloth seats, no leather option. You miss some safety features, you miss some certain wheels, you don't get a sunroof, less cameras, things like that. So we'll definitely be taking a look over on my car channel and probably on this channel about the top tech. Now, if you guys are interested in trading in a car, now is a great time here in 2021 because dealerships are starving for inventory. And that's one of the reasons why I ended up trading my Crosstrek in that you have probably seen on the channel before. I was able to get nearly $4 grand worth of trade equity when I traded mine in, and it was a lease. That is insane. So I was able to put that towards the vehicle and get, swapped over to an electric vehicle. So if you are in the Kentuckiana area and you're interested in seeing how much you could get for your car, I'll definitely have a link down below where you can check that out. But the updated front end design is one of the reasons why I like it so much. It's very aggressive and a lot different than it was in the outgoing 2021 model. They did a split headlight design, which is what everyone's doing. LED daytime running lights with a sequential turn signal, which is awesome. And then your brights and your LED headlights are down underneath there. They replaced the gold Chevy bow tie with this blacked out bow tie, which I absolutely love. For some reason, EVs insist on having this weird textured plastic front panel instead of a grille. You don't need a grille on an electric vehicle. So instead of just not having one altogether like Tesla does, they just slap some weird like fake grille textured pattern. I don't know. It's weird. It's not the worst on this and it's kind of subtle, so I'm all right with it. Now, what powers this whole thing is this motor up under the hood in a standard place where you'd see an engine, but it's not a gasoline engine. It is a motor and it's powered by a 65 kilowatt hour battery stored up underneath the floor of the vehicle. And that will get you 200 horsepower, 266 pound-feet of torque. And this is not switching through gears horsepower. This is instantaneous acceleration. It is a blast to drive. It's super quick, super responsive. So that battery, that 65 kilowatt hour battery, is rated for about 250 miles to a full charge. Now that will differ obviously with driving conditions, temperature, your driving style, the terrain you're driving on, all that kind of stuff will have an impact on it. And we'll take a look at how you can monitor that inside. It's super cool. As far as other design elements go, you have this little Bolt EUV badging on the side, which looks really nice. It's really subtle and clean. Body colored side mirrors here. They've got integrated turn signals. It sits on these 17-inch aluminum silver painted wheels. I'm not the biggest fan of these wheels. That's actually my least favorite part of the car. I'm going to look into a way that I can maybe powder coat these wheels or swap them out. I know wheels are extremely expensive, so I'm not interested in pouring a bunch of money into wheels, but nonetheless, I liked my wheels on my Crosstrek way better. So that's the only kind of disappointing part here is just these plain boring kind of aluminum wheels here. But moving on back, you have keyless access, it's push button start, remote start on the key fob. You can remote start it in the My Chevrolet app. So lots of technology packed inside here. And one of the reasons why I went with the EUV over the regular EV is just because I'm a videographer. If I have to go shoot a wedding, or if I have to do a promotional project for somebody, I carry a lot of gear around and I need a place to store my big camera and tripod and all that kind of stuff. And I can't fit a lot of that stuff in the smaller Bolt. My Crosstrek had about 56 cubic feet of storage space with the rear seats down, and it was about 177 inches long. This Bolt EUV is 169 inches long, nice, and has about 57 cubic feet of storage space with the rear seats down. You get very similar cargo capacity. It is a little bit smaller, and so that kind of impacts kind of rear seat passenger room and things like that. Now, like I said, I'm gonna be doing some update videos as far as like what it's like to have an EV, because this is the first time I've ever owned an all-electric vehicle. But charging is the problem, right? There's not that many charging stations, all things considered. Of course, it depends on where you live. If you're on the coastlines, there's gonna be a lot more, but middle America, you may be a little bit out of luck and it may be pretty limited. Here in Louisville, Kentucky, we are getting more and more, but it's definitely a slow grind to get those charging stations built. So charging is a main concern here because you only get 250 miles of range in ideal conditions at max capacity. So I plugged this into my home outlet in my garage, got it all set up, got an extension cord out there, plugged it in, boom. It said yesterday, which was a Thursday, it will be done charging by Saturday at noon. Basically 2 whole days to get this thing charged off of a standard home outlet. That is your standard level 1 120 volt charger. If you go up to 240 volts, which is a level 2 charger, that time will be cut in half essentially depending on your amperage. So it'll go to anywhere like, 7 to 10 hours to fully charge. So that's definitely something that I'm going to be investing in at some point soon, because I do not want to be waiting 2 days to get this thing fully charged at home. I want to be able to plug it in and let it charge overnight and be ready to go. So I'll definitely bring you guys along when I do get that thing installed. But for now, I'm getting like 2 miles per hour of charge. So obviously you can tell 250, it's going to take a long time to get up there. All right, so hopping inside this cabin here, first thing that stood out to me when I got in here versus my 2019 Subaru Crosstrek is just how much more compact the cabin is, which makes sense. It's a smaller overall vehicle. It's about 8 inches smaller than the Crosstrek, which you're gonna notice when it comes to just cabin, dimensions and legroom, shoulder room, headroom, all that kind of stuff, which it's fine. It'll take getting used to for sure, coming from a little bit of a larger vehicle. And the Crosstrek is really not even that big, but a little bit larger than this. But what this has that the Crosstrek doesn't is modern amenities. So my Crosstrek was pretty low down as far as trim level goes. It was a premium. So it had analog gauges, which even the higher trim level Crosstrek still have analog gauges, but analog gauges, had a 6-inch display. It didn't have really any safety features, even though Subarus are known for their EyeSight driver assist safety systems. It had a normal shift knob. It had a normal pull parking brake. All of it was just kind of very, very analog. Whereas here in the Bolt EUV, everything is basically digital or electronic in some way. Instead of analog gauges, you have an 8-inch digital display cluster right here. Instead of a 6-inch display, you have a 10.2-inch display. Instead of having a traditional shift knob, you've got a shift-by-wire pad right here. Electronic parking brake. Safety features galore. So all these kind of things, it's kind of a give and take. Yeah, it's a smaller overall vehicle, less storage space, but you do get a lot of those safety systems and a lot of those modern amenities. It's got a wireless charging pad, all of this great stuff. Now we're going to kind of briefly touch on everything that I just talked about, but again, hit subscribe so you don't miss my more extensive top 5 tech features inside the Chevy Bolt EUV that I'll have coming to this channel very soon. Not only do you have all those screens, but you have these really just nicely designed elements. So you have this really nice Chevy steering wheel. Now this isn't a heated steering wheel like you can get on some higher trim levels, but it's still a really clean design. Adaptive cruise control on this side and then media controls on the other side. Normal stuff that you'd expect to see, lights, wipers. You do have this regen braking paddle right here. It used to be down underneath the steering wheel on the older Bolt models. Again, this is an entirely new unit, this EUV. This is the first model year of it, 2022. But older Bolts have been around for a while. I think they started in 2017, 2018. So they had the regen paddle down underneath, which was a little bit more comfortable placement. But this one is up here, kind of where a paddle shifter might be. So you can hold that down and it will slow your vehicle down and regen some of that battery power. So moving on over from that display, you have this beautiful 10.2-inch Chevy Infotainment 3 system. It's got a beautiful flat design language to it, which I'm a huge fan of. Also, just going from a 6-inch display to a 10.2-inch display is a crazy jump, and it basically looks like an iPad built into this console here. Really nice, and there's a couple things that I really love about it. The first is this HD rear camera. Now, this thing takes up the entirety of the screen, and it is very, very clear. You know, you can always tell, like when you have a regular definition camera and you blow it up, it gets all pixelated and blurry, but when you've already got an HD rear camera, it fits nicely on that 10.2-inch display. Now, some higher models that you may see or look at are gonna have like surround vision system, so cameras all over the place that you can see a 360-degree view around your vehicle. This doesn't have this, obviously, because it's a lower trim, but nonetheless, having an HD rear camera is great. Also, like I mentioned outside, you have this energy menu, and this thing is going to show you a little rendering to show you kind of how much battery you have left, and you can, when you're actually driving, you can see kind of the battery flow. It's really cool. But if you go into details, it'll actually show you what is taking up the majority of your battery. So in my case here, obviously driving and accessories is taking up 84%. My climate setting, so air conditioning or heat, is taking up 16%, and then my battery conditioning is currently taking 0%. You can also go into impacts, and this is really cool. This will break it down for you and show you how your technique, terrain, the climate, and the outside temperature are impacting your miles per gallon or miles per charge. And you can go to history, and that'll show you kind of your average miles per charge and things like that, which is cool. And you can actually go to charging and adjust, you know, your limits on what the different charging options you're using. Like if you want it to fully charge, if you don't want it to fully charge, if you only want it to use a certain amount of amperage, you can do all of that and adjust it right in that charging menu. But probably my favorite feature is the standard wireless Apple CarPlay. I'm a huge CarPlay fan. My Subaru had, you know, plug-in CarPlay and things like that, and a lot of these modern vehicles have wireless CarPlay. So having it standard is great, and it fills up the entirety of this 10.2-inch display, and I think it just looks absolutely killer. So I can use all of my apps, including the ones that are specific for charging stations like ChargePoint or PlugShare and different apps like that. I can use those on Apple CarPlay on my Bolt's screen. So really nice. I love using CarPlay, and I love having it on this nice big screen. It's a lot of fun. And then if you move back from that, you have your shift-by-wire pads. They took out the little gear shift that you had in previous Bolt models and a lot of other vehicles you guys have probably driven, and you have this little pad. So park is a push, rear is a little toggle, neutral is a button, and drive is a toggle. Now, past that, you actually have a dedicated button now for your one-pedal driving. One-pedal driving, if you're unfamiliar, is basically where you don't need to use the brake hardly at all, because as soon as you let off that acceleration pedal, your vehicle will instantly start slowing down. So it's a little bit hard to get used to. It's a little bit like a golf cart would be, where you just have instant acceleration and then instant deacceleration when you let off. So again, takes a little bit of getting used to, but it's a really cool way to drive because you don't even really ever have to use the brake unless you're kind of in a quick stop situation. And speaking of quick stop situations, I do want to quickly mention some of the safety features that this has. Now, it comes with a plethora of standard safety features, and there's a couple ones you can add on higher trim levels. So this has front pedestrian monitoring, front automatic braking. You have a lane departure warning and assist, IntelliBeam high beam assist, and you have obviously a rear view camera and things like that. Another nice feature coming from my 2019 Subaru Crosstrek is the My Chevrolet app. Now, some people may love it, some people may hate it, but the My Chevrolet app gives you a lot of nice vehicle information and has some nice functionality to it. So inside here, I can choose, you have a garage. So if you have multiple Chevys, if your kids have some Chevys, you can monitor everything on here, that kind of stuff. But I just have my one car on here, and it will give me my charge status, how many miles left, whether it's plugged or plugged in. I can see vehicle status, like issues. I can see all my tire pressures. I can see my airbag system's working, my OnStar system's working. I can check recalls. I can schedule service. And I can do things like sound the alarm, stop the alarm, lock and unlock my vehicle, and remote start it all from the app. I can also go into the energy menu and find myself a charging station. So I can, zoom in on where I'm at, and it will tell me, you've got a charger here, you got a charger here, a charger here, and it'll get me directions to that and make sure that I have enough battery to get there, which is great. The other thing that I absolutely love about the 2022 Bolt lineup, the EV and this EUV, is that they got rid of everything that made the car feel like an electric car. And what I mean by that is previous models, they really wanted you to know you are driving an EV. So they would have weird materials like bright white steering wheels or bright white interiors or weird like electronic, textured panels and things like that, that just screamed, this is not a normal car. This is an electric car, which means it's different. And Chevy's saying, no. We want you to drive a car that just happens to be electric versus driving an electric car. Does that make sense? So they stripped away all like the high gloss elements and the white accented textures over here and the bright, colors and blue this and blue. It's a stripped down, minimal, I think Car and Driver called it sober interior, which is really what it is. It's basically entirely black, gloss black, and satin, which is really nice, feels clean, maybe a little cheap in places, but at the same time, you want to have your vehicle be as light as possible. So I'm okay with some cheap materials, but it just feels relaxed. And I think that is key. They also changed that interface that we just took a look at. They changed it. It used to be in previous generations, this whole deal where it was all white and it all looked different and was completely outside of what Chevy was doing on its other vehicles. And they took this one and said, no, we're going to give you the same exact user interface on the same exact screen size as some other models. We're just going to give you an energy menu too. You know what I mean? So you're driving a Chevy vehicle that's electric versus driving a Chevy electric vehicle. Now, taking a look at the back seat here, I'm actually going to take my shoes off because I don't have all-weather mats yet, and I want some. But you can see that I have a decent amount of legroom back here. I'm about 6'1", and I had my front seat here exactly where I would normally have it when driving, and I have plenty of legroom. It's not even, my knees are a good 5-6 inches away. I can stretch them out, put my feet up underneath the seat if I need to. Now the rear seats don't recline at all. That's, is what it is. But you know what? Compared to my Crosstrek, this is right up there as far as legroom goes. So I hope you guys enjoyed this first look / maybe some indulgent beauty shots of my all-new 2022 Chevy Bolt EUV. And like I said, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss my future videos on the top tech features and kind of maybe putting in my level 2 charger and all these kinds of milestones down the road. And I'll be doing an update video probably in about 6 to 8 months on what it's been like to own an electric vehicle since this is my first one. So definitely don't miss that if you're interested. And if you want to see more comprehensive videos breaking down the entire Bolt lineup, definitely check the link in the description and head over and subscribe to Bachman Auto Group because I'm making a whole series of videos over there as well. So thanks so much for being here, guys. I'll see you in the next one.